Somebody has told you about the milk jug. Cut the top off, pour a couple inches of clean brake fluid in the bottom, run a clear hose from the bleeder screw down into that fluid, and you can bleed your own brakes with nobody sitting in the car. That is a real trick, and I am not here to take it from you. It worked in 1962, and it works on the car in your driveway this weekend. Here is why. The problem with bleeding brakes alone was never the pedal. It was the return stroke. Every time the pedal comes back up, the system tries to draw something back in through the open bleeder, and what it draws is air, so you undo the work you just did. Put the end of that hose under the surface of fluid in a jug, and there is no air for it to pull. It pulls fluid back instead, and the loop stays closed. That is the entire principle behind every one-man bleeder kit on the shelf, and those cost $25. The jug was the version already in the kitchen. But brakes are not chrome, and they are not a fogged windshield. This is the one system on your car where being wrong does not cost you money, it costs you a stop sign. So there is one absolute rule with this trick, and it is not about the jug. It is about what is happening 4 feet away in your reservoir while you are down there watching bubbles. I spent 30 years doing brakes and suspension in a 2-lift shop, and the mistakes I saw were never in the technique. By the end of this, you will know how to do this properly, the one thing that undoes the entire job in about 10 seconds, and how to know for certain when you are finished. Number 17 is the mistake that ruins the job while you are looking straight at it, and almost every first-timer makes it. Number 9 is the reason your pedal can still feel soft after a perfect bleed, and it is not air. And number 1 takes 30 seconds, and it is why a brakeman never once handed back a car he was not sure about. These 25 tricks were never about a milk jug. They were about men who understood that a brake system is a sealed column of liquid, and a liquid cannot be squeezed, which is the only reason your foot can stop 4,000 pounds. Let us count down the 25 things they knew about bleeding brakes alone. Number 25. Building the jug properly. A clear container so you can see 2 to 3 inches of fresh brake fluid in the bottom and a length of clear tubing that fits the bleeder snugly and reaches well under the surface. Tape or wire the jug up higher than the bleeder if you can, so the hose runs uphill. A shopman in 1962 built one in 5 minutes. The jug is not the tool. The fluid seal at the bottom of that hose is. Number 24. Getting the right size hose. The tubing has to grip the bleeder nipple tight because a loose hose lets air in around the outside, and you will chase bubbles all afternoon that are not coming from the brake at all. Clear vinyl in the right inside diameter costs a couple dollars a foot. A garage man in 1962 kept 2 sizes on the shelf. The bubbles you see are only useful if you know where they came from. Number 23. Knowing what brake fluid does to paint. It strips paint on contact and it will run down a fender before you notice. You put a rag under the caliper, keep a bottle of water nearby, and flush anything you spill immediately. A shopman in 1962 draped every fender before he opened a bleeder. It is not a stain that wipes off later. It is a spot of primer you will be looking at for years. Number 22. Buying fluid you have not opened before. Brake fluid is hygroscopic, which means it pulls moisture out of the air, and an open bottle on a shelf for 2 years is already contaminated. Water in the fluid lowers the boiling point and boils to vapor under hard braking, and vapor compresses. You buy a fresh sealed bottle for the job. A mechanic in 1962 opened a new can every time. Old fluid in a bottle is not a saving. It is the fault you are trying to fix. Number 21. Using the fluid your car specifies. The cap on your reservoir says DO T3, DO T4, or DOT 5.1, and you use what it says or the next number up, never down. And DOT 5 is silicone, a different animal entirely, and it does not mix with the others. A shopman in 1962 read the cap first. Those numbers are not marketing. They are boiling points, and a boiling point is what keeps a pedal hard on a mountain grade. Number 20. Cracking the bleeders loose before you start. Bleeder screws seize, and if you find that out with the reservoir open and fluid dripping, you are in trouble. You soak each one with penetrant the day before and crack it loose, then snug it back. A shopman in 1962 tested all four first. A snapped bleeder screw turns a Saturday afternoon into a new caliper. Number 19. Using a proper bleeder wrench. A 6-point flare nut wrench or a dedicated bleeder wrench grips the flats all the way around, and an open-end wrench rounds those little heads off in one pull. A garage man in 1962 kept the right wrench on a hook by itself. The screw is soft brass or steel, and it is the smallest fastener carrying the most consequence on your car. Number 18. Bleeding in the right order. On most systems, you start at the corner farthest from the master cylinder and work in, which is usually right rear, right front, left front. Some cars specify their own order, and split diagonal systems differ. You check the manual for yours. A shopman in 1962 knew the sequence for every car in his book. Doing it out of order pushes air around instead of out. Here's something nobody is counting. The men who did brakes in 2-lift shops, who could tell from the first 2 inches of pedal travel whether a car had air in it or a bad hose, are nearly all gone. The youngest are past 80. They did not keep it in a manual. They kept it in their hands, over 30 years of pressing pedals and feeling what came back. When they go, the jug stays in the recycling and the hose stays on the hardware store shelf, exactly where they always were, and the knowing goes into the ground. That chain ran bench to apprentice for 50 years. And then brakes became a job nobody was supposed to touch at home. If this is worth something to you, take 1 second right now and hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on that notification bell. That is the only reason a video like this ever reaches the next man who needs it. Number 17. Watching the reservoir, not the bubbles. This is the mistake. You get absorbed watching the hose, the reservoir runs dry, and air goes in at the master cylinder, which is the one place it is hardest to get back out. You check that reservoir after every few strokes and top it before it drops below the line. A shopman in 1962 checked it obsessively. The jug catches what leaves, nothing catches what the reservoir lets in. Number 16. Never pouring the caught fluid back in. What comes out of that hose is old fluid full of moisture, rubber particles, and whatever the system shed, and men look at a jug of clean-looking fluid and think it is a waste. It goes to a recycling center, not back in your car. A mechanic in 1962 poured it in a waste can without a thought. It looks like fluid. It is a filter's worth of everything you just removed. Number 15. Pressing the pedal slowly and not to the floor. On a high-mileage car, shoving the pedal all the way down runs the master cylinder piston over a section of bore it has never traveled, where corrosion sits, and it can tear the seals and kill the master cylinder outright. You use slow, controlled strokes to about 3/4. A shopman in 1962 taught the short stroke first. It is not the bleeding that kills old masters. It is the extra inch. Number 14. Recognizing when a bleeder screw is the leak. Once open, a corroded bleeder can weep around the threads, which means air gets pulled in past them and you will never get the system clean. A wrap of thread tape on the threads only, never near the tip, seals it while you work. A garage man in 1962 knew the difference between a stubborn bleed and a leaking screw. Endless bubbles usually means air is entering, not leaving. Number 13. Knowing what modern systems need. On many cars built since the 1990s, the anti-lock unit holds air that a manual bleed at the corners will never reach, and getting it out needs a scan tool to cycle the pump. If your pedal is still soft after a clean bleed and the light is on, that is why. A shopman in 1962 had no such thing. Manual bleeding still does most of the job. It just no longer does all of it on every car. Number 12. Never opening a system you cannot finish. If you crack a line and cannot get it sealed and bled the same day, that car does not move. Not down the driveway, not around the block. A brake system with air in it may give you one stop and not a second one. A shopman in 1962 pulled the keys off the board. Every other job on this channel can wait until tomorrow. This one cannot. Number 11. Doing the same job with a vacuum bleeder instead. A hand vacuum pump on the bleeder pulls fluid through without anybody touching the pedal, and it costs about $30. It draws a little air past the threads, which looks alarming and is usually harmless, and it is easier on an old master cylinder. A shopman in 1962 used pressure or gravity. The jug is free. The pump is faster and gentler on tired parts. There is a reason nobody tells you a jug does the same job. Count the money. A 4-wheel brake fluid flush at a shop runs $100 to $180, and it is recommended every 2 or 3 years for the life of the car, which is $2,500 or more over 30 years. A master cylinder killed by a full-stroke pedal is $250 to $600 installed. A caliper seized because nobody ever changed the fluid is $250 to $500 a corner, and every one of those grows out of a service that costs a quart of fluid and an hour. Now price the other side. A jug from the recycling, 2 feet of clear hose, $3. A bleeder wrench, $10. A quart of fresh fluid, $9. $22 once, and the wrench outlives you. The craft was not lost. It was made unprofitable, and then it was allowed to die. Do me one favor before we get to the top 9. Hit like, subscribe, and turn that bell on so the next one finds you. That is the entire price of this. Number 10. Reading the fluid before you decide anything. Pull the reservoir cap and look. Clear or light amber is healthy. Dark brown or black means it is loaded with moisture and worn seal material, and that is a system asking for a full flush rather than a top-up. A shopman in 1962 looked before he touched. The level tells you whether you are losing fluid. The color tells you how long since anybody cared. Number 9. Knowing when a soft pedal is not air. A pedal that sinks slowly under steady foot pressure with the engine running is usually a master cylinder bypassing internally, not air in the lines. A pedal that is soft but holds firm is air or a swollen flexible hose ballooning under pressure. A brakeman in 1962 could tell them apart in 2 presses. Air is spongy and stops. A failing master just keeps going down. Number 8. Checking the flexible hoses while you are there. Those 3 or 4 rubber hoses at the corners perish from the inside, and a collapsed one holds pressure at a caliper so a brake drags, or balloons so the pedal goes soft. You look for cracking, swelling, and wet spots, and you flex each one. A shopman in 1962 squeezed every hose he passed. A hose is $30. What it does when it fails is not. Number 7. Looking at the hard lines before you trust any of it. Steel brake lines run the length of the car in the road spray, and a rusted line lets go under hard braking with no warning at all. Flaking, swelling, or scale means replacement, not a bleed. A mechanic in 1962 checked lines before he checked anything else. Every other item here costs you money. This one costs you people. Number 6. Torquing the bleeder and cleaning up properly. Bleeders get snugged, not cranked, because they seat on a taper and over-tightening cracks the casting. Then you wipe the fluid off, cap the bleeder, and put the reservoir cap on properly so moisture stays out. A garage man in 1962 finished a job the same way every time. The last 30 seconds of a brake job decide whether the next man can open it. Number 5. Testing the pedal before the car ever moves. Engine off, pump the pedal until it goes hard, then hold steady pressure for 30 seconds. It must not sink. Then start the engine, and it should drop slightly and hold firm. If either test fails, you are not done, and that car does not leave the driveway. A shopman in 1962 did this on every car. The bleed is not finished when the bubbles stop. It is finished when the pedal proves it. Number 4. The first drive done properly. Empty street, no traffic, walking pace, and you use the brakes before you need them. Then a little faster, then a firm stop. You are listening and feeling for pull, noise, and a pedal that changes. A shopman in 1962 drove every car himself before he called the owner. The test is not whether it stops. It is whether it stops the same way, twice. Number 3. Knowing the 6 places a brake system fails. You do not guess. It is the fluid itself, air in the lines, the flexible hoses, the steel hard lines, the calipers or wheel cylinders, and the master cylinder. That is the whole system as far as an owner needs it, and the fluid and the air are the only 2 you should be curing in a driveway. A brakeman in 1962 walked them in that order. Number 2. The yearly look and the fluid on a schedule. Once a year, you pull the reservoir cap and read the color, look at all 4 flexible hoses, and run a light along the hard lines. Fluid gets changed every 2 or 3 years, whether it looks bad or not, because moisture is invisible. 20 minutes. It is not a repair. It is a standing appointment with the only system that has to work every single time. Number 1. Pressing the pedal and holding it before you back out. That is all. 30 seconds, engine off, then running, feeling whether it holds. Because every brake failure in the history of the automobile announced itself first as a pedal that felt slightly different, and somebody drove anyway, and the second time it was not slightly. Your grandfather did this without calling it anything. He called it feeling the pedal. Number 1 is not a trick. It is the check that makes the other 24 worth anything at all. If this was worth your time, hit like, subscribe, and turn on that bell right now. It costs you nothing, and it is the whole reason I get to keep making these. None of this needed a certification, a scan tool, or a subscription to anything. It needed a jug, 2 feet of hose, a proper wrench, and a man who understood that everything between his foot and the road is a sealed column of liquid with no air in it. That was the default setting in every shop in America. Not confidence handed down from a classroom. Confidence built from having bled enough systems to know exactly what a good pedal feels like under a boot. We did not lose the jug. It is in the recycling bin, right where it always was. We lost the hands that knew to watch the reservoir instead of the bubbles, and the old man who leaned in the door, pressed the pedal twice with his fist, held it, and said, "That one is right. You can hand him the keys." So tell me down in the comments what you were driving, and go pull your brake fluid reservoir cap and look at the color. Clear amber or dark brown. That one answer tells you whether this is a job you need this month, and it takes 30 seconds to find out. He is gone now, and most of what he knew went with him. But not all of it, because some of it is in this video, written down at last. So build the jug this weekend, because it genuinely works and it costs nothing. But do the pedal test before that car moves every time, without exception, because this is the one system that does not give you a second chance to notice. Next time I will show you how those same men read a brake rotor by hand and by eye, and knew whether it could be turned or had to be replaced without a single measurement. The craft is not dead. It is a jug and a willing hand away.